deadlift with pull down is a posterior oblique sling strengthening exercise. So it's going to activate the lat to the opposite glute across the SI joint to help stabilize that joint. When we're strengthening the posterior oblique sling, we want to focus on co-activation of the two opposite ends of the sling. So we want the lat and the glute to be turning on at the same time to help strengthen across the sling to help stabilize that SI joint. With the single leg deadlift with pull down, we want the band to be around eye level. If you're using your door frame, either over the top of your door or if you have an anchor, anywhere that's around eye level with your door frame. So I would grab one band and I'll step back. And so I want to think the opposite arm is going to be working with the opposite leg. So my stationary or standing leg is typically going to be my work leg, and the moving arm is going to be the work arm. Sometimes it's easier to think about it as the same side is going to be moving because this arm and this leg are going to be moving at the same time, but sometimes you can think about it opposite of working to working. So the basic version of this is going to be a single leg deadlift with that pull down. So I'm going to think inhale to reach forward as I hinge back. As I do my single leg deadlift, I want to focus on driving this hip crease back. So I want my hips to be fairly level. Sometimes it can be helpful to think almost like standing on the wall behind you, so being very active in that standing leg, or even pointing the toe down towards the floor, or even rotating it towards the standing leg to help maintain this more even hip position. So I don't want to open in the hip as I hinge back. So I'm going to think drive this hip crease back as I hinge forward, and then exhale to pull the band back as I extend in this hip. So inhale, I'm going to reach forward, and then exhale, I'm going to think stand up as I pull down at the same time. So this is going to offer that co-activation across the sling with this lat working with this glute. Now if I wanted to advance the movement, I could add weight. So I'm going to hold weight in my free hand, inhale to lower down, and then exhale, pull that band down as I extend the hip. Inhale down, focus on keeping that top leg active, driving that hip crease back. Exhale to stand up. The other thing that I could add to advance this movement would be a knee press. So I'm going to inhale to lower down, and then exhale to come up as I bring that trail leg up to press into it hard. This is also going to be activating the anterior oblique sling, which is the opposite of the posterior oblique sling. So we have the adductor across the pubic symphysis to the opposite oblique and chest. So inhale, lower down, exhale, bring that trail leg up and press hard into it at the top of the movement. Now, if I needed to regress the movement, let's say single leg movements just don't feel great for you, or you're having a really hard time balancing it, we can first go to a staggered stance. So instead of this leg moving as I go, I'm going to plant it, but I'm still going to keep weight in that front leg. So this back leg is just my balance leg, but this is still my work leg. So I'm going to inhale to shift back, still thinking knees stay stacked over the ankle so that we have more of that hamstring activation as opposed to squatting with it. So if I had a flashlight attached to my butt, it would shine the wall behind me as opposed to shine the floor. So focus on that vertical shin position. Inhale to reach forward. You can even think drive this hip crease back to emphasize that internal rotation to lengthen the glute a little bit more. And then exhale to stand up as I face forward and pull the band down. So inhale, drive this hip crease back, focus on keeping that vertical shin position, and then exhale to stand up. So inhale back, exhale to stand up. The next regression that we can take is a supported deadlift. So I would take my foot, I'm going to put it on a bench or an elevated surface behind me. So this is going to add support to that back leg. And now this is my work leg. So I'm going to inhale to drive down. Then keep that vertical shin position, drive this hip crease back, and then exhale to stand up. So inhale, reach forward, exhale to set back. So sometimes this feels more stable than a staggered stance, so you can explore which option feels best for you. Now, if the asymmetrical stances or the single leg loading stances are still causing discomfort, we can regress down all the way to a deadlift with pull down. So both feet are going to be even with one another, and I'll be using both arms to pull. So you can either use one band or you can do two depending on your setup. So I'm going to inhale to drive my hips back. So again, think like a flashlight is attached to my butt, shining on the wall behind me. Shins are maintaining a fairly vertical position, and I'm reaching forward with my arms. And then exhale, extending the hip as I pull the bands back. Inhale to drive the hips back, reach forward. Exhale to pull down at the same time. So with the single leg deadlift with pull down, this is a posterior oblique sling strengthening exercise. So we want the lat and the opposite glute working together to help strengthen the stability across the SI joint. So I want my standing or forward leg is my work leg, the moving arm is my work arm. I want to take inhale to reach forward as I drive this hip crease back. Be very active in that lifted leg. So I'm thinking point the toe down towards the floor as opposed to opening in the hip. Keep that closed hip position. And then exhale to pull the band down as I extend in the hip for that simultaneous contraction. Options to advance this would be to hold the weight in the free hand or to do a knee press. If I needed to regress, I can go to a staggered stance, supported back leg, or a deadlift position.